So today I'm going to talk about strength, misconceptions for BJJ. So I wrote an article on this and I posted it. And then some of the groups I'm in, I got criticized with some of my points, and I thought this would make a good piece of content. Now, people can disagree with me, and that's fine. But I wanted to take this opportunity to articulate some of the points. He made some really good points that I thought, but that doesn't negate the truth to what I said as well. So my first point was talking about how build strength, build muscle around the most vulnerable joints. It really helps us to protect us from injuries. Allows us to bounce back from injuries. And he went on to say that the best thing you can do to avoid injuries is to have good technique, which I agree with. If you have bad technique, you move in certain ways, it's very easily to get hurt because you can put yourself in very vulnerable positions. I agree with that. But someone who is very frail, like a smaller dude, especially going against a bigger dude, the chances that you're going to get hurt, especially if someone has a lot of pressure, knee on belly's high pressure, it's going to hurt you a lot more if you don't have muscle mass. And this is one of the fundamental reasons why strength and conditioning exists, because we know that if you're stronger, if you're fitter, if you have better aerobic fitness, if you have better flexibility, all these things that kind of go on the umbrella of strength and conditioning, we know that you'll get hurt less. Which is why a lot of times you take like a brutal sport like football, is they want to build a lot of strength and muscle because they know throughout the year they're gonna get beat up, they're gonna end up losing weight because they're playing the game so much. And we go back to football. This is very popular with football because football is not really a physical sport, but it's an impact sport. And now jiu-jitsu might not be as impactful, but the wear and tear and how guys are trying to just grab your limbs and twist them. Having muscles around your joints is going to help you get hurt less, stay on the mat longer. And that he disagreed with this, it baffled me. The whole point of strength and conditioning is to the number one thing is, yeah, you want to improve performance, but the number one reason why you would be in a strength and conditioning program is so that you can avoid injury, so you can stay in your sport for a while. So that doesn't matter if it's basketball or football. It's a fundamental reason why you do strength and conditioning, and being strong, having more muscle is definitely going to help you get hurt a lot less. And again, I do agree with this point. It's like, if you have good technique, if you have good fundamental sound technique, you're not going to put yourself in these vulnerable positions where you can get hurt. I definitely believe that. So point two. So what I wrote for two is how I believe strength training transfers over to conditioning for BJJ. And this kind of seems wildish for people, hard to believe, because a lot of times when people have bad cardio on the mats, they want to just do a bunch of cardio and do the mats. So he said strength training does not transfer to endurance for BJJ. When was the last time someone did a 5-minute plus set in strength training? Best way of having cardio for BJJ is doing BJJ. The most transferable fitness, you learn the most important part of BJJ is technique. So a lot of times when I post things, I always have someone disagree with me. I'm not saying that you shouldn't work on technique. I feel like that should be an obvious point. When it comes to any sport, practicing your sport is the most important thing. Having good technique in your sport is the most important thing. So I agree with them on this, but it doesn't negate the fact that being strong and having a certain level of strength training is going to help you with your endurance. Now, there is a caveat to this, because there's a bunch of different ways to strength train. You can power lift, you can bodybuild, you can do more functional training, you can do more athletic training. So it definitely will affect how much it does. But one of the things I want to point out, and this is huge, people don't understand, this is one of the biggest misconceptions of strength training. Your training inside the gym does not have to be so specific as your training on your sport. So just because we don't do a set for 5 minutes does not mean that my strength training is not going to transfer over to jiu-jitsu. It's something, it's crazy. And you think of any other sport, when someone's in the weight room, they're not trying to make their weight training program look like a football game or a basketball game. It's about developing certain qualities inside the weight room that will help you transfer over. So if you lift weights with full range of motion, with good tempo, good control, you won't be under load for a while. Which is a lot of jiu-jitsu, which is about having a certain grip and then be able to hold that for a long period of time. Now, it's not like weight training where you squeeze as hard as you can, but it does take a certain amount of strength. So if you strength train, you probably have a decent amount of muscular endurance, and muscular endurance, along with your aerobic fitness, is going to be probably the two biggest factors that will allow you to have better BJJ cardio. So If you do not do strength training, if you're very weak, what and also ends up happening is that everything we do is to display strength. Me picking up coffee, all right? Obviously, it's a very low level of strength, but same thing with techniques. Certain techniques take more strength, certain technique takes less strength, but they all take a level of strength. So if you're very weak and you're doing technique, you are going to use a higher percentage of your maximum strength. So if that is you, that means you're going to get fatigued faster, your heart rate is going to get higher, you're going to build lactic acid in your muscles faster, your muscles are going to get more damaged. So that becomes a relative factor. So now if you get strong, that doesn't happen, and that will allow you to have better condition. I feel like social media and the internet is like these point scenarios. Like, just because I say strength training is going to help with condition, it doesn't mean that you don't need to develop any condition. And I've talked about the importance of aerobic training. And I'm not saying that is the best way to improve your BJJ gassing. I would agree with this guy and be like, hey, the best way to get better at BJJ is your specific skill and your techniques. Again, a lot of these points that this guy made was like saying that I didn't think technique was important. Technique is the most important. And that goes with every sport. And sometimes I don't maybe point that out because to me it seems obvious, right? Like number 3. So then I kind of talked about this before, is that everything is a display of strength. And that sometimes when people say you use too much strength, what they really mean is you're using too much strength and you're missing out on techniques, or you're using so much strength in a way that's going to get other people hurt. So I'm definitely not advocating for that. But he goes to say, with BJJ biomechanics, there is a threshold where any more strength is not relevant. Again, training BJJ improves strength in this equitable way. Guess what learned? I think he has a misspelling. So what he's saying is, if all the strength that you need for BJJ is just train BJJ. And I definitely disagree with that, but I do agree with him, is a certain level of strength. There's going to be a certain level of strength where the benefits of getting stronger isn't going to get any higher. So you don't have to, when I say build strength, build muscle, I'm not telling you to be a bodybuilder. I'm not telling you have to be a power lift and deadlift like 500 pounds. But what I'm saying is more strength is going to make the techniques easier in certain situations, and is going to improve your endurance. And I would argue that the strength you get just from BJJ leads a little to be desired, especially when you think of a injury prevention standpoint. If you just rely on that as your pure way that you build strength, there is going to be some imbalances in your body, and that could definitely lead to injuries and overuses. So a lot of times, like, we're super rounded off like this. So it's a very good idea to work the opposite muscles to open things up, because if you're like this, and this is how you do jiu-jitsu for like 20 years, you're gonna get these overuse injuries, and you're gonna be one of those guys who have a really bad neck. You're gonna have to get, like, you probably have to get surgery as you get older, because you don't have good balance. So again, he makes a good point here, but again, I kind of disagree with him. Which is the whole point of this, is not to put this guy on blast, but to articulate some of the points I made in the article. And if you are confused by that, to help, this is one I just kind of talked about, because sometimes people, and I actually never feel like this in my gym, if someone says, "Hey, you're super strong," but like online, it seems like if someone says you're strong, that's like a backhanded insult. So he said, "You're strong" is not an insult, particularly if the perceived strength is due to the correct framing biomechanical technique. I can get behind this part. We can always be better. Hope this adds to the discussion. So again, I really have nothing wrong with that. You got different guys comment, and we kind of talked about how, like, sometimes if you have really good technique, it makes you feel stronger. And again, this is more the black and white, where people like, you don't need strength and condition. You just need to train jiu-jitsu more. And it's kind of crazy, because in what other sport do we say that? We don't say that with football or basketball or hockey. We understand the benefits of strength and condition. It's not like an either or. If you have a decent level of strength, and you have great technique, like I said in the article, that's really gonna make you a problem. All right, it's gonna be very, very hard to deal with. And plus, being strong, like I said, is going to help prevent injuries, help with recovery more. It's going to help with your conditioning. Again, this guy has some great points, but sometimes, again, we need to get away from the black and white stuff and not just be like, hey, it's just training jiu-jitsu, because that can lead to certain problems as is. So I'm gonna finish with my take on BJJ strength and conditioning. So obviously, the sport becomes first. You should work on being better, having good technique, good fundamentals, right? You should know the sport. At first, you might have to dial back your strength as a white belt because you don't want to use so much strength weight that you don't use the right technique. So that's, obviously, and that's kind of the stuff where I said, hey, it's obvious. Like, that's why I don't think about it, because in my head, I'm like, duh, you don't learn how to throw a football. But anyways, so then after that, I think the most important thing would be to focus on your GPP. So that's just what that means is your basic level of fitness. So learn how to move properly. So learn the 5 fundamental movement patterns, and then get strong. Like this guy said, you don't need to be super strong and build a lot of muscle, but a little bit is going to do a lot for you in the sport from a longevity standpoint, definitely a performance standpoint. And then if you have mobility issues, you need to address those, because that is definitely going to lead to more injuries, and plus it just won't allow you to do all the moves that they would need to do. If condition issue, I would definitely keep your strength training in there. Like this guy said, you need to do more jiu-jitsu so you learn how to get your timing and your tension right, and that's going to really affect your condition. That's like number one. And when I wrote a article on BJJ cardio, this was like the first thing I talked about. Another thing that's going to really help is build your aerobic fitness. So if you're someone who wakes up with a resting heart rate of like in the high 70s, I think you should try to squeeze in aerobic training 1 or 2 times a week, which is about usually keeping your heart rate between 120 and 150 for like 20 or 60 minutes. And until you can develop that, and you'll know that it will improve because your resting heart rate will slowly drop. The resting point would be somewhere in like the low 60s, 50s. If it's really good, it's maybe even in the high 40s. And then the last thing I'll probably say with that is like recovery is super important. If you don't recover, you're going to get hurt. You can get fatigued. You're not going to train well. So things like proper nutrition is really important. And a few things that and this is actually really hard for me to do, but like if you're someone who trains almost every day like I do, I train 6 days a week, is every day doesn't have to be like super hard rows. You can have days where you make your rows a little easier and days you make it a little harder. Like right now, what I'm trying to do is Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays, those are days where I really want to push my rolls and have really hard rolls, really work on my A game for competition. And then Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I really want to focus on dialing back my intensity and really either focus on technique, or sometimes I just want a day off where I'm not taking it super seriously and just playing around and having fun, because again, that's why most of us do the sport, the martial art, because it's a lot of fun and we can't lose that aspect of it. So that is 4 ways how to 4 misconceptions about strength training, plus how I view strength and condition for BJJ. If you got this far in the video, I really appreciate that. If you like to see more videos like this, make sure you subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon.